we talk about is this triad, if you will, the circle of research, our intellectual property. Huawei now is one of the leading developers of intellectual property in the telecommunications industry, and yet the openness to share the developments equitably with the industry and to build true value out of our integration, out of our innovation. So this is a corporate strategy. So to link all of these together is part of what Huawei does, so that we can take what we build and make it worthwhile for the industry to embrace it. So we have the customer requirements, industry orientation, the business things, all leading towards things that create customer satisfaction. And the process of building intellectual property is very important. It's been an area where there's been a lot of discussion in the controversy, if you will, in the industry, but it's one where Huawei now feels that it's important to be playing on a level playing field here, and that's certainly where Huawei does it. We do not do things that are, shall we say, counter to the industry needs in this area. Some of the organizations that we work with, I think this is a so we could give a slide with perhaps 50 more organizations. This is just some of the leading ones. We do have chair positions at IETF, not only working group chairs, but board level type positions in IETF. As I mentioned, we have a board level position at ETSI. We're involved in WiMAX at ADIS. We have a board member at the Broadband Forum, the BBF. And so all of these, I'm a technical body vice chair at ETSI and a working group chair at both the ETSI fixed network standardization, next gen network standardization group called TISPAN. I'm also the architecture chair at the Open IPTV Forum, which is an industry forum focused on the IPTV, the television over service provider IP. So many hats, but this is how Huawei plays, and we link these together very effectively. The group I'm in does the coordination of sort of steering the policy across all of these standards organizations. So a lot of times one of the issues is each one of these organizations has a different constituency, and sometimes you have to back out and say, how can we make it more effective? How can the BBF work with ETSI and the 3GPP to make fixed mobile convergence happen? Because the 3G guys need the femtocells. The Broadband Forum is building the broadband access to the residential environment. ETSI has next-gen network and policy management standards for the fixed network. So then we have joint coordination internally, and we promote joint coordination between those organizations. This is an important sort of behind the curtains part of the process, frankly, to make it all work. Just that you'll be able to have a 3G, 4G device working on a femtocell in your residential environment that's not going to fight with your IPTV service. Think of it, it's like, well, I've only got so much bandwidth. Even though you may have broadband, it's still going to be a scarce resource. So if not for one IPTV channel, perhaps you have 3 IPTV channels, and then you have your femtocell, and then you're on the internet, and then you have voice. This is the equation that we're trying to solve, so that you, as a user, are satisfied with the service. And this is a complex and challenging environment. But as FMC is down, machine to machine. We're responding to the European Commission mandates, Mandate 441 on smart metering. Responding to the European mandates on energy conservation. Huawei is one of the leaders in, we participate in ETSI-EE, which is the energy efficiency group within ETSI. So to reduce the power demands systemically through the entire communications infrastructure is really a challenging task. Some of the areas, I think, we talked about ITU, we talked about optical, IETF, of course, suddenly IPv6 having gone silent for a few years, suddenly IPv6, everybody's talking about IPv6 again, and as they suddenly realize, the address space really is going to exhaust, and we need to do something about it. IEEE, we're working on interesting things. like next generation service overlay network, which would be how would you offer services off of a cloud infrastructure in a service provider environment. So this is a specific area, new area of work. So bringing cloud services, but not just cloud services that you think of in the enterprise version where you take an application and move it up into a data center environment, but the fully distributed cloud where services exist pervasively within a distributed network, and the service provider provides access to all of that infrastructure dynamically, and then allows that to be a service platform for others. So cloud as a service, we say, network as a service, NAAS, or IaaS, infrastructure as a service. These are acronyms you'll see in the cloud. Broadband forum, as I said, working on FMC, IPv6. Some areas are more ahead than others. The 3GPP is doing lots of work in evolving towards the next generation. The LTE long-term evolution is a key activity that Huawei has been a leader in, continues to be a leader. I think one of the hot topics now is enabling femtocell technologies to work, to be deployed effectively, and to work effectively across a number of deployment scenarios. I don't know if you're aware, but one of the technologies will be to deload the mobile network by allowing broadband connections to, if you will, escape the network over the local broadband connection. So this is very important technology and an enabler for better user experience, because they'll get a faster session on their device than they would if it was backhauling all the way through the carrier network, the mobile carrier network. We talked about the growth in patents. This is, I think, something that really allowed Huawei to participate well in the intellectual property. It demonstrates the investment that Huawei has been making. Patents don't just occur out of the blue. Patents are the result of long research and development, fundamental research and applied research. And so this started quite a while ago, and is now resulting in Huawei becoming one of the leading generators of intellectual property in the service provider industry. Some of the areas, I won't go into this as much, and feel free to ask any questions. Talk about another example. Here's IMT Advanced. All of the other providers, technology providers, we have to work with these people. I have guys from Ericsson and NSN basically on my speed. Well, when I write an email, when I put the first two letters of their name, the name pops up on email because I'm corresponding with them that often. That's how tight the coordination is behind the scenes, several years in advance of these technologies being able to be deployed. But we also cooperate, daily with the service providers who are most involved in moving these into the market, and listening very carefully to what their deployment strategies are. And one of the issues is, you look at these guys and they all have a somewhat different deployment strategy. Frankly, they all have a somewhat different market. So one size does not fit all. We have to be aware of what are the deployment aspects. And when the China Mobile guy walks down the hallway and says, yes, our customer base, by the way, we just went past 600 million customers for China Mobile. And more than 500 million, that's incredible. I don't care what you do. When the multiplier is 500 million, it becomes a large task. So think of changing something in the network for more than 500 million customers. Optical, once again, a similar set of players, slightly different set of providers in the optical network, because this is a very focused and specialized area. Some of them very well known, some of them not. But also working with the service providers who are really active in upgrading their distribution and backbone parts of the network using differing optical technologies. and all the high capacity optical going to past 100 gig into 400 gig optical is the next trend, and those standards are being worked on right now. That's a very, very active set of standards being addressed at places like the ITU and in the IETF. So NG-SON I mentioned earlier, work at the IEEE, heavily influenced by some other Asian operators here, but also with Telcordia involved. So this is another platform that the service providers could use to offer their own cloud-based service platform for their own services, for enterprise services, or for other research activities as well. IPv6. I mentioned IPv6, there's lots and lots of discussion about IPv6 maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and then it sort of went silent. It wasn't the buzzword, and then suddenly it seems to have sprung back up, and everybody, I think because the market is now saying, I'm ready to think about actually deploying IPv6 broadly. So now there's a lot of activity to go, how are we actually going to get through the implementation? So you see work items in migration, IPv6 migration becomes the word. It's not just the theoretical, this is actually the applied mechanics of how am I going to go from IPv4 to IPv6 and support maybe some of both at the same time. And these are the difficult tasks in getting something actually rolled out and implemented as you think of these large networks. And finally, we are recognized in the industry. I think we get awards and typical, these are competitors, you can't put those things up there. But anyhow, so we are mentioned in the industry press, and I think we've become known for innovation, for the openness, for the willing to entertain the dialogue with all of the parties involved in the industry. So with that, I think we're done. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.